Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a mission into, well, a seriously dense stack of philosophical and cosmological writings.
Pretty intense stuff.
It is, but it's also intensely practical. Our sources lay out a complete spiritual roadmap for achieving what they call perfect human nature. And this isn't just theory, it's a whole system of rules designed to elevate the human spirit.
That's precisely right. Our mission here is to synthesize the complete path presented in these writings, a path explicitly designed to lead an individual toward the supreme life space.
And ultimately to escape.
To escape the painful, repeating cycles of transmigration or rebirth. And the entire structure of this philosophy is built on one foundation, the 8 conditions of perfect human nature.
And the stakes, they could not be higher. The source material claims these 8 conditions are the non-negotiable prerequisites for establishing not just individual happiness, but global justice and peace. If we ignore them, the individual remains trapped, and humankind is just consigned to this perpetual state of competition, confrontation, and war. It really frames morality as a cosmological imperative.
It does. It shifts the whole discussion from simple ethics to spiritual physics. The implication is that if you fail to meet these 8 conditions, you are fundamentally incompatible with the highest forms of life and freedom.
Okay, let's start at the very top of the hierarchy with condition 1. Revere the greatest creator, gods, Buddha, and respect other people. This begins with a very specific and I'd say highly technical definition of the divine.
What's fascinating here is the sheer description of the greatest creator. It's unique, formless, neutral, mysterious, impartial.
Merciful, almighty, and wise.
Exactly. And critically, this source posits that the creator exists in spirit form, not in our familiar universe, but in what it calls the negative universe.
Wait, let's pause on that. We can't just skip over the negative universe. What exactly are the sources defining that as?
Well, the negative universe is, in this system, the ultimate origin point, the spiritual home of the greatest creator.
Okay.
It's defined by the writings as the realm where the creator exists in pure spirit form and, governs all reality from there. It's the cradle of life, the source of universal wisdom.
And how does it maintain order?
It maintains order in both the positive material universe we inhabit and the negative one through a force called Tao, which the source material explicitly equates to mana.
So Tao, or mana, is the functional energy of universal order, and it's all coming from this impartial, formless creator.
Right.
If that's the scale of the divine, it instantly puts human ability into perspective. The sources then launch this fierce critique of human arrogance. We can't control thunder, birth, death, or the tide.
And the sources ask what human arrogance that dauntless revolutionary spirit has brought us. Their answer is stark. Confusion, poverty, ignorance, and backwardness.
They even quote the Tao Te Ching.
They do, yeah. They reference the idea that when people have no fear of force, then great force descends. The writing suggests that our belief in self-sufficiency, our attempt to exaggerate human ability, simply causes massive destruction because we're fighting the cosmic order itself. Reverence, in this context, is simply recognizing reality.
And that recognition extends to a very structured spiritual hierarchy that we have to respect, regardless of our personal beliefs.
Absolutely. It's laid out like a fixed ladder. Gods are above Buddha, Buddha is above man, man above animal, and so on, cascading down through plants, mountain rocks, and finally bacteria.
And below that?
Below even that are the suffering creatures in hell, the frozen layer and the inflamed layer. Respecting this chain, and the great teachers like Jesus and Buddha Sakyamuni, it isn't about worship, but about understanding the proper spiritual roadmap.
Okay, so if that's the creator's power, condition 3, reverence for nature, becomes immediately logical. Nature is defined as the creator's direct gift, and the sources accuse humankind of committing chronic suicide by destroying it.
The destruction is listed in a lot of detail. Deforestation, massive pollution, excessive hunting for trophies like ivory, discharging factory waste with impunity. The writers argue that we are accelerating human destruction by committing these sins.
By treating the very thing that sustains us as just some unlimited resource to exploit.
Exactly.
So how do we demonstrate this practical reverence in our daily lives? The rules are very specific, moving way beyond just recycling.
They are. They're actionable and targeted at consumption. It means not wearing leather or fur products, avoiding all wild animal meat, not catching or damaging wild animals, and rigorously refraining from excessively cutting down trees or plants.
It's a commitment to protecting nature universally.
Based on the belief that if we honor nature, nature will in turn love, protect, and breed us.
Okay, so we've established the cosmic hierarchy and the rules for respecting the outside world. Now let's apply that framework to our inner state, which brings us to condition 2. Have no sense of winning and losing or rival.
This is where the philosophy truly redefines value. The core meaning of life is identified as the pursuit of truth and immortality, not status, fame, wealth, or victory in worldly affairs.
So anyone who spends their energy chasing temporary earthly success
It's
is.
putting the cart before the horse. These things are temporary, they're considered cumbersome and rubbish on the path to the supreme life space.
The sources explain that the ups and downs of life, our perceived successes and failures, are just ornament. They don't reflect your ultimate standing or spiritual health. You shouldn't be happy for a success or cry for a failure. But how does one maintain that state in a competitive world?
The ultimate achievement here is reaching the state of no win and no lose. The sources link this directly to what Buddha Sakyamuni called passionless samadhi.
Which isn't indifference.
No, not at all. It's a transcendence of dualistic judgment. If you reach this state, you simply take what belongs to you, you don't plot or fight for what doesn't, and you leave the struggle for others, thereby transcending the conditions that lead to rebirth.
That intense self-focus on eternal goals leads perfectly into condition 4. Modest, trustworthy, and honest. And the sources use this really powerful and provocative analogy. The sun, the moon, the peony, the grass,
Yeah.
all arguing over who's superior.
Yes, they argue that this vanity, this comparison, is the root of false modesty. True modesty is simply seeking truth from facts. If a doctor saves lives every day, stating that they're excellent is factual, not arrogant.
And if a high-ranking official downplays their abilities when they're clearly great, that's false humility because it contradicts reality.
Exactly, you must neither exaggerate nor disdain yourself.
And trust is built on integrity, fully assuming responsibility and practicing what you preach.
It's defined by action, not just intention. Supervisors must care for subordinates, children must support the old, contracts have to be strictly implemented. If a man is trustless, the writings describe him as unknowable and deeply dangerous because his actions are unpredictable.
And while trustworthiness deals with actions toward others, honesty is about the alignment of the inner and outer self.
Right. What is said in the mouth is what is kept in the mind. It's the rejection of deceptive words and deeds. No mixing truth with falsehood, no flattering against your will.
The philosophical system does acknowledge that, yes, in official circles and the marketplace, dishonesty often leads to momentary earthly success.
It does, but that is described as a catastrophic spiritual failure. The sources explicitly warn that dishonest people cannot enter the 1,000-year world in the next life.
What exactly is the 1,000-year world? Is that the first level of escape?
Yes, it's the first spiritual destination that grants a significant break from earthly suffering. The higher level of existence, but it requires a baseline of accumulated merit and quality. Dishonesty, even if it's financially successful here on Earth, is essentially a veto card against ever reaching that first tier.
Let's move on to condition 5. Be sympathetic and compassionate, or love. The sources call this the supreme level of human nature and the path to achieving Buddhahood.
Given the universal suffering witnessed throughout human history, from tribal wars to personal anxiety, sympathy appears necessary. But here's the most profound caution in the entire framework. The sources place a strong, almost counterintuitive boundary on compassion.
They warn that unprompted sympathy can actually be viewed as humiliation by someone with strong self-respect. Why would showing kindness be seen as humiliation?
Because true self-respect means believing in your own ability to solve your problems.
Yeah.
So if you offer unsolicited sympathy or material help, the recipient may feel that you are broadcasting their inferiority.
That you're suggesting they can't manage their own destiny.
Exactly. And worse, it often creates a spiritual debt that they didn't even ask for. The source illustrates this with the fable of the farmer and the snake. The farmer showed pity, took the snake in, and was bitten to death.
So, the rule is strict. Help should only be given if appealed for. The sources even warn against marriage out of pity, stating that it will lead to unhappiness for everyone involved.
It's a fundamental redefinition of how we interact.
It really is. It suggests the only thing we truly control is our inner state, which brings us perfectly to condition 6, be able to adjust and stay calm in both good times and bad times.
The requirement for internal equilibrium is total. In good times, you must immediately attribute all benefits to the greatest creator to prevent pride from corrupting you. In bad times, you must accept the situation naturally, viewing all misfortune, bereavement, loss, illness as a necessary catalyst to propel you toward Buddha.
The guidance here for suffering adversity is incredibly specific and in some cases truly challenging. If you are framed or misunderstood, the instruction is clear. Do not complain or blame.
The instruction is to quietly wait for good times. The philosophy dictates that discerning right and wrong should be left to God, and assessing merits and faults should be left to Tao. Our job is just to endure and continue working on our spiritual perfection.
But the most difficult advice, I think, relates to fatal illness. Do not lament or seek panacea. That seems to run completely against the basic human instinct for survival. How does the Source reconcile not seeking remedies with the principle of loving life?
It connects back to the definition of life. If you face a fatal illness, the sources urge you to focus entirely on the construction of the spiritual entity, not the temporary physical flesh. The rationale is chillingly pragmatic. The earlier the death, the less sin you've committed and the less debt you've accrued after recognizing the path.
So it could potentially increase your chances of reaching a higher life space faster.
That's the idea. It prioritizes the eternal self over the temporary vessel.
That really drives home how temporary the physical world is in this framework. That leads us to condition 7, conforming to the laws of nature, not seeking for peculiarity.
This is a warning against spiritual shortcuts. Natural law dictates the cycle of birth, growth, death, seasonal change, celestial movement. Seeking exception and peculiarity, like supernatural powers or exceptional functions, is strongly advised against.
Why are these powers considered harmful?
The sources assert that seeking such powers is against natural law, that it actively harms mental activity, and is ultimately useless for achieving the goal of perfecting human nature and extending life in higher space.
Success comes from hard work.
Right. Success in this system comes from behaving as an ordinary person first, as the writings say. To achieve a doctorate, you must first do primary school. Never pursue exceptions, or you will be lost and caught by the devil.
Now we come to condition 8. Love life, love work. We need to start by defining life in this philosophical system, especially given that harsh advice on fatal illness.
Life is defined by a formula. 1 + 1 = 1. It is the combination of the physical flesh, which is merely the carrier provided by your parents,
Right.
and the spiritual entity, which is the true essence provided by the greatest creator. Loving life, therefore, requires reverence to the creator for the spiritual essence and respect for the parents for the physical shell.
That definition of the spiritual entity as the true self is key. It clarifies why the sources list provoking war or administering the death penalty as serious sins. You're destroying the true essence gifted by the creator. But there's an interesting exception regarding abortion.
They do provide one. They state that abortion is not a crime because the spiritual entity does not enter the fetus immediately. It only enters after roughly 10 days or so, via what they call the anode black hole body. Before that, the fetus is defined as merely the continuation of the maternal parent life, not an independent spiritual entity.
And loving work. That means any activity that creates material and spiritual wealth.
Labor is the noblest activity for survival and happiness. It encompasses everything that adds value: designing, sewing, writing a novel, cultivating talent. Non-work, conversely, is defined as activities that destroy wealth or are merely for personal indulgence, traveling purely for fun, stealing, robbing, or cheating.
So we have the roadmap, the 8 conditions for perfecting human nature. But even the most perfect soul faces one enormous universal obstacle to reaching heaven: the law of gravitation of life.
This is the cosmological kicker that determines your fate after death. This law states that a spiritual gravity exists between all destined lives. And the magnitude of this gravity is directly proportional to what they owe you, and inversely proportional to what they have favored you. This force, which is essentially debt or karma, is what prevents souls from achieving escape velocity and reaching heaven.
That is a powerful image. You cannot leave this world until you pay off all your bets. This is why transmigration forces you back to the world where you accrued them, and we've heard who the biggest factors are preventing entry into heaven.
Your family. The sources state plainly, a man's foes are those of his own household. Because our family relationships are the most intense, frequent, and enduring, we accrue the largest debts and favors there. This powerful debt gravity will inevitably attract you back to the mortal world, often in the same family lineage, until the debts are cleared.
This raises the critical question of spiritual accounting. How does one repay such enormous debt?
The mechanism is twofold. First, the negative debt must be cleared. This is done by enduring revilement, persecution, and suffering without resentment or desire for revenge, accepting it all willingly, as taught by Jesus and Buddha Sakyamuni. This counteracts karmic sins.
And second,
Second, you must practice formless almsgiving.
Define formless almsgiving.
It means accumulating merit by giving without expecting any material or even spiritual return, and doing so in a way that is hard to quantify, like teaching for free, correcting others' mistakes privately, or simply setting a good example. The writings claim the rewards for this are inconceivable and provide the necessary speed for escape.
And the sources quantify this required speed using an analogy of cosmic velocities, which makes the entire process sound like celestial navigation.
Exactly. For a satellite to orbit Earth, it needs 7.9 kilometers per second, the first cosmic velocity. To escape Earth's gravity and orbit the Sun, it needs 11.2 kilometers.
Right?
In this system, a soul needs the equivalent of the first cosmic velocity, a same level of merit and quality, to reach the 1,000-year world. The second velocity is needed for the 10,000-year world, and the third velocity is required to reach the ultimate destination, the Elysium world.
So your accumulated quality and merit determine which level of freedom you achieve.
Precisely.
That connects the philosophical to the quantitative. Now, moving into the application of this entire roadmap, the sources make a strong assertion. Self-improvement and self-cultivation is not a religious practice, but a science.
It must be, they argue, because it must adhere to the three essential elements of science: laws, the roadmap we just discussed; verification, testing the laws on oneself and others; and methods, the precise, reproducible steps to reach the destination.
And their major critique of traditional practices like Taoism, Buddhism, or Qigong is that they lack the scientific rigor. Why?
Because they focus on ambiguous, non-quantifiable concepts like mind or heart that can't be measured or proven.
I see.
The system argues that you can't verify progress if the target concepts are constantly shifting. This structure demands measurable actions like clearing debt, performing formless almsgiving, not just nebulous good intentions. The one clear scientific goal remains: make life happy, joyous, free, and blessed, and let life continue to sublimate.
But if the roadmap is so clear, why do people constantly fail? The sources point to the practitioner's confusion, that pattern of being noble when entering the church but absurd when leaving it.
The problem, according to the sources, is not a lack of moral education, but a lack of a supporting program or structured environment. Moral education teaches you why corruption is bad, but a program removes the soil and conditions for that corruption.
So without that structure, reality just forces you to compromise and you get beaten back into your original state.
Exactly. The environment is as important as the intention.
Which means the final requirement for spiritual advancement is therefore absolute determination. Only by leaving everything behind can we go far.
This means ceasing comparison, giving up the thought of alternatives and being absolutely determined. The road to heaven requires that the heart must be dead to worldly temptations, worries, and vanities. If your heart is still attached to anything of this world, that subtle spiritual nature will be suppressed.
If we zoom out to the biggest picture, this entire journey is about acquiring one thing: freedom. The sources state, freedom is the passport to heaven.
Heaven is absolute freedom. Hell is absolute bondage. A high level of freedom equals closeness to heaven, and the requirements for achieving that high level are rigid. You must never establish special relationships, accrue no debts, set no goals, own nothing, and obey only the greatest Creator's will.
Which leads to that powerful counterintuitive warning that pursuing traditional life goals like getting married is often described as chaining a big iron ball to your ankle. Starting a successful business allows vanity to trap your freedom. The path to the supreme life space is defined by what you shed.
And that brings us to the ultimate choice the sources present to you. You are faced with two piles. The first pile consists of honor, power, money, beautiful partners, grand villas, endless compliments. The second pile has nothing but a letter of credit called freedom.
The source states that 99% of people without hesitation choose the first pile, thereby losing their freedom and running straight toward bondage and debt. This deep dive has laid out the rigorous, scientific, and often painful roadmap for choosing that second pile, the one that leads to cosmological freedom.
So the question for you, the listener, is whether you have the determination, the scientific method, and the courage to choose the path of nothingness for the sake of boundless, unconstrained freedom. Which road will you follow?